G'day. It's the first week of September and up in Nutkin Farm the trees are flowering, and tells you an interesting story. If you look at this particular one, you can see, if I get in close, some flowers there. They're a certain length, the same colour, doesn't seem to vary much tree to tree. They're in open bloom when they're white, but they're green before they open, and then after that they decay as little baby nuts set along what's called the raceme, which is that length of flowers. And it's one way to tell trees apart, and that's been interesting for me, because the farm records of this particular block, which is Amy's block, say that in 2006 they planted a lot of 246 trees. And I mentioned this in an earlier video. It's an early Hawaiian variety, crops reliably, reasonably large sized nut, a nice tasting nut, which is good. And for the most part, when you wander around up and down the roads, as I've been doing, you see these flowers, and they're a certain length. But there's some telltale signs that they're not all that variety. So take an example here. The tree I'm walking up to now is looks like a 246, looks like the trees I've just shown you. You can see its flowers, some of them open, reasonably healthy there, not much sign of insect attack at all. But then you walk to the next one. Now this particular tree has leaves that look a little longer, not too much different, but look at the difference in the flowers. I'll just hold my hand up next to one of them, and you can see from that they're incredibly long racemes, and it's clearly a different variety of tree. Now I'll probably ask a mate or whatever, but I suspect it's one of the A varieties, possibly even an A4 or an A38, but they have long racemes. Another hint that it's an A variety is that it's got a stick type, which is last year's nut, which you can just hold that up to the camera. Yep, you can see it's there. Won't be edible or anything, so I'm just going to chuck it away because it can host insects. But yeah, it can keep some of last year's nut on the tree. It's called a stick type. So there it is, a rogue tree in the middle of it. Was it a mistake? Well, this is where record keeping becomes important. You've got to be able to rely on it. It's a handwritten book in my case, kept by the original farmer, who was a doctor. And it may well be that all the trees that were originally planted were 246s, and certainly the new baby ones I've planted are 246s. I can verify that because I got them from the nursery myself, and there's one of them there now. They're all fairly happy. Haven't had any die on me yet, which is good too. But yeah, you can go along and see varieties that are clearly different. Now, my agronomist thinks that there could be some of the 816 variety in there, and that was almost regarded as a newer version of 246, as they got smarter in breeding trees, although the 816 has its problems with growth. And yeah, but I can't find a consistent pattern. What I do know, of course, is that some trees died and that I've replaced them with 246s, but perhaps some other trees died early as well and were replaced with another variety. Well, what does that mean for a block of trees? Well, good and bad. The good is that the research is in, and that cross-pollination between varieties of macadamias tends to result in more nuts and bigger nuts as well. The downside is that you can get the tree flowering and fruiting at different periods, which is bad when you're trying to break a breeding cycle for some of the pests. Now this looks like a different one again. The racemes are narrower and a little bit longer than the 246. And it looks like we've even got a couple of early nuts setting in that one, and the tree is really quite upright and tall. This one next to it looks exactly the same. The one next to it again could be the same, but then you cross the row over here and you're back to definitely what seemed to be the 246s again. So yeah, the cross-pollination's a benefit. The different fruiting time's a benefit. Obviously you don't want to send your harvester up and down rows where you're only going to harvest a few trees in that row. It becomes a little bit inefficient in fuel and other costs. So in general, when farmers plant different varieties, they try and plant ones that, while being different, tend to flower and fruit at the same time, so that when you're using your machinery, you'll be using it to do something to all of the trees instead of just some of them. And that there's almost certainly a 246 with its shorter racemes. So yes, if anyone watching this with more expertise than me, and there'd have to be someone, would care to comment on what they think the varieties are based on the flowers, that's great. But I'm going to keep a close eye on this block, which is my pet block, being close to the house, and we'll really get to know when it starts bearing nuts. We'll see when they drop, which is a good key to working out what they are, also what size they are, and what percentage of the nut is kernel as opposed to shell. And that's a whole different science involving the thickness of the shell, the size of the circumference of it, and so on and so forth. So we'll find out eventually. This episode isn't over till much later in the season, but for now I'm signing off. Hope you've had a great week. We've been having a bit of a smoky time here with the fires in Tenterfield, but nothing threatening here, thank goodness. Anyway, stay safe. Catch you soon.